Welcome to the week 9 of the mini paint challenge this week. We have a fun stream today. We are painting these little Babybel cheeses. So I've got a cute little reference photo that I took a little bite out of it and I set it up. It looks really cute today. But if you are new here, these are the instructions on how to join the mini paint challenge. We've got the hashtag mini paint challenge. You can also tag me with Megan Josol art on like either Instagram or Facebook, and I can show your art some love if you try this one out. It's going to be a fun stream today. So let's get into the color mixing. I'll pull up this stream here. Oh, hey Mona. The cats are already deciding to show up. Come say hi, Mona.
Sorry.
It's okay, my husband's just in the background making tea, I think. Got Mona here today. She, actually, I was saying on my Instagram stories the other day that one of them vomited on my keyboard. So I ended up getting a new keyboard. Look at this new baby. So hopefully they don't vomit on the new one. That's new fear unlocked. I'm really hoping they don't vomit on that new keyboard. that would not be good. Oh my goodness. Okay, so here's the reference photo we've got. I've got the little arrow here so we can figure out what to do. I actually thought it'd be really fun to use the manganese violet for the background. I haven't used this one in a while and I think it would be really nice. So that is going to be the first color on our palette today. And I think I will actually do kind of like the faded background. I really like the way that the background's like fading into like the center with like the lighterness in the middle. So I will put the purple over here. So this is manganese purple. I'm using oil paints, but you're welcome to use any other type of paints you'd like. It'll just kind of, the paints will kind of work a little bit different. As far as consistency wise and drying time, but you can use acrylics or watercolor if you'd like to. And okay, so I've also got I have a bunch of paint over here from my last painting session, so I figured I'd take off some of the main colors. These are kind of unmixed colors that I figured we could reuse. I keep my palettes in the freezer and that kind of helps to make them last a little longer. So we've got some sap green in here, so we'll use the sap green. What else? I will take some of the this one's alizarin crimson, so I'll put that on my palette. I'm just gonna grab this. So alizarin crimson, I will use some cadmium red. This one is cadmium red light. And then we've also got I don't actually know if I'm going to use the cadmium orange. I will use this guy here. It has a little bit of orange or something in it, but this is cadmium yellow light. So we'll use that. Just trying to use up these old colors. I really don't want them to go to waste. I'm going to take some of the cadmium green that I have as well. Put that on the palette. And then I said I was going to use the sap green. I like to lay it out in rainbow order. Just easier to find the colors too, and it's in a nice rainbow. I will use a bit of this cerulean blue hue. So cerulean blue hue. And then we've also got some ultramarine blue here, so we'll use a bit of that. I'm actually going to put a bit of this quinacridone magenta on it as well. So I'll keep that over there. And then the last color we'll put on, I think, is going to be this white. This is titanium white. We've got titanium white here, and then we've got a bit more titanium white here. Yeah, that's titanium white. A lot of extra titanium white I didn't use up. So we'll grab that. And then at least we're not wasting any paint. That is my biggest thing, is I'm always trying to make paintings out of like the paint that I haven't used yet. So I'll be able to put this one back in the freezer and maybe use this another day. They normally last for a few weeks when you freeze them. Or I find that my paints last a few weeks. Hey, hun. Did you get all the colors? I think most of the colors are in the description already. The only color that isn't in the description is manganese violet, because I haven't used manganese violet before. Yeah, instead of manganese purple, it's manganese violet, but kind of the same thing. So good job. My husband's got them all there. Okay, and so for the first, I guess we'll just mix the background first. We'll play with the manganese violet. Might have to like brighten this up a little bit for you guys. There we go. Turn up my light a bit more. I put this kind of on because I'm like, it blocks me from the lights above me. It makes it a little less bright, which is nice. Yeah. Okay, so manganese violet, let's get this on the palette. Now I also have, I should mention, I have the reference photos on my website. So if you go to the link on my YouTube channel that says Mini Paint Challenge, if you click on that, you can actually go on my website and go to download reference photos, and it'll show you all of the past weeks of reference photos. So just download this one, and then you can blow it up on your computer, and it's nice to have like a big image of the reference photos, so you can kind of zoom in and see like little details and stuff. It's a little bit nicer to have like a higher quality reference photo than the one here, because I know I can only make it so big. I want to try to make the palette a little bit bigger for you guys. So if you do that, you can go and grab the reference photo there, and it's a little easier to see. And then I like to color match things a little bit and like check like the values. So I have a reference photo up here, and I just keep matching it up to the one on the screen. So we're actually going to take it like straight from the tube and add that on. So that'll be our first color, and then we're going to kind of fade it a little bit. I think I'm going to use a little bit of quinacridone magenta maybe in here. I'll make it a little pinky red, a little more pinky red. Okay, grab a little bit of titanium white just to see where that brings the color. I don't want to add too much titanium white because we end up kind of washing out the color if we add too much. So that brings the color down a bit. I'm going to keep some of it on my palette knife. So that's our next color. And then grab a little bit more titanium white here. We want to try to create as many transition colors as we can within the painting, so we're not blending too much on the piece of paper. It's better for our brushes if we are mixing with a palette knife rather than our brushes. So I try to make as many transition colors. Sometimes we don't always use all the colors we make, but I try to make the transition colors so then we can kind of, there we go, that looks pretty good. Okay, I'm gonna grab a bit more because I do want to make a slightly lighter one as well. I have to add a bit more of the magenta in there. Okay, let's see how that looks. Get a little lighter. Try not to make too much of it because we're only doing on my end, I'm only doing a 3" by 3" piece of paper. So we don't need a ton of paint for it. It's kind of the benefit of doing such small paintings. You don't need a ton of paint. Okay. Let's see how that one's looking. I know, Mona. Cats are like meowing in the background. My husband just fed them, but they're still meowing at me. Okay, let's see how that one's mixing up, and we will compare it. So it is pinker than I want it, but we can just add a little bit more. This color. Add a little bit more of the manganese violet. I don't work with the manganese violet very often, but I do really enjoy the purple that it produces. It's one of the newer colors that I got. I was like, ooh, that's really pretty. Just spontaneous purchase color that I don't normally use. I try to keep my palettes pretty simple. Just fun to mix colors from really basic palettes rather than, you know, having a really extensive palette. I feel like it's easier too for beginners when they're first starting out to work on a really limited palette. Like there's a few like really good limited palettes that you can choose from within the art world. There's like the basic palette. I was kind of talking about that last week too. There's, you know, the basic palette, the one you learn in school where it's like red, yellow, blue. You can also go with the CMYK palette, which is cyan, magenta, and yellow. And that's a pretty good palette as well. Okay, that one's looking pretty good. And we're gonna make a slightly whiter one as well. This one's gonna have quite a bit of white in it, just for like that center area where it's like quite a bit whiter right near the cheese. And I said on this stream, I'm gonna have to eat a little Babybel cheese at some point. Okay, let's see how that looks. Probably not going to use a ton of this lighter color, but yeah, that's pretty good. I like that. When I'm mixing the colors too, we're looking for it to match the value, so like the light and dark areas of the reference image. You don't have to match the color exactly. I think it's fun to kind of push the colors in different directions rather than just make them look super realistic. Because a lot of things in real life are kind of like desaturated and not as fun. So I was saying the other day, like in order to make your paintings more like saturated and colorful, you're gonna want to add less contrasting colors, and you're not going to want to like mix them as much with a ton of other pigments. You kind of want to keep them pretty like neutral like this. Like that'll be nice and bright for the background. And then when we move into painting like the green actually on specifically, here I'll move my arrow, on this area here is going to be kind of like, it's going to have like undertones of like orange in it, and that's going to desaturate it quite a bit, and we want a little bit of a brighter green there. I'm going to actually start out with sap green, which has other colors mixed in already. I want to see if that's kind of like what we're going for. I'm going to add a little bit of yellow to lighten that color. So sap green and a little bit of cadmium yellow to lighten it. And we'll see if that's close enough to the color so then we don't have to, yeah, that's actually looking pretty good. I figured the sap green would be a really nice one. You could also make sap green. So sap green is a mix of a few different colors. It's one of the colors I was saying that has a mix of colors. So this one has Indian yellow and phthalo blue in it. So it's a really nice mix. A lot of people really enjoy using phthalo blue. I don't actually have phthalo blue. That's one of the colors. I guess I don't need it because I have sap green. But I should get phthalo blue. I have phthalo turquoise, and we've been using that a bit in some of my other paintings. But I really like this green. Sap green is just such a pretty color. It's really nice to use it in like landscapes. I've done a few like landscape type paintings, so that's going to be kind of, I'm wondering, I want to have like a slightly darker color too, so I'm going to actually put that here, and I'm going to deepen this color by adding a little bit more of the sap green. We're going to need one color, so I'll use my mouse. Like in this area here, there's some deeper greens, so we're going to probably want to add, we're gonna have to add, I think, a little bit of, yeah, because that's like pretty saturated, and we don't want the shadow sections to be as saturated if we want it to be toned down a bit. I'm gonna actually add a little bit of red in there, and a little bit of yellow. I don't want to add too much yellow because then it'll brighten it up too much. So I think I'll go with like a bit of red. Let's see if that brings it close to the color we want. By adding red, we're adding the complementary color to green, which will desaturate the color a little bit. Don't, like I said, you don't want to add too much. There we go, that's looking better. So that will be, I'm gonna pick that up. I like to make like little piles because it's just like easier to have like little piles on the side. Now I don't want this like color mixing in with our brighter greens that we're gonna make. So I'm gonna just clean off my spot on the palette for mixing. We're gonna grab a bit more sap green, and this is the chance to add a little bit more yellow to this green. And we're going to work on this lighter value of the green now. So the closer you get to the cheese bits, it's kind of almost like see-through in some areas. So we've got more of that yellow tone in there. So we're just going to work on getting that nice purples on the palette. I know, right? I really like the purples that we've got going on. That's why I was like, the manganese violet is just such a nice one. I really need to use it more. I really like that purple, because normally I make a purple kind of out of the quinacridone magenta, but the manganese violet, it's just so pretty. Sometimes it's nice to not just mix a purple, but actually like buy the purple tube of paint, because you're not going to get anything that saturated by mixing other colors, or at least with the colors I have right now. Like you maybe could get something similar with like the cerulean blue and the quinacridone magenta. It's going to be a little off though. Okay, let's match that color up because we've added some yellow to that, and I think that one's looking really nice for that area. I think it'll be really nice. And then so over on the one that doesn't have cheese in it, kind of on this side here, they're very kind of like washed out and white. And we will work on that a little bit for the next color. So we're going to have to wash out a bit of this sap green. Sap green and yellow, we'll make a little bit more of that. And then we have to wash the color out a bit by adding white to it, the titanium white. And that washed out white will also be good closer to the cheese, like near the lighter part as well for some of the highlights. Okay, so we've got similar color. I just made a bit more of it. Should have just made more to begin with, but it's okay. I can mix it again. Okay, and then we're gonna add white to it. Lighten it quite a bit. Then we're gonna match that up and see how that's looking. Okay, let's see how that looks. So that's definitely like a little too yellowy. I don't actually want it that yellow. I think I pushed the yellow way too far on that side. I'm gonna put this to the side a bit. I'm gonna take the sap green over here and I'm only gonna add white to the sap green because I think we pushed that color a little bit too far to the yellow side. Don't quite want it that yellow. I know that there's yellow already in this, the Indian yellow. That's another color I don't actually have as well, Indian yellow. I'd say Indian yellow is kind of more on like the orangey side, I think. It's been a while since I've used Indian yellow. I used to use it in acrylic paints. So that's looking a little closer in some of the areas. Like it's very close to that, except less yellowy. If I put them beside each other, you'll kind of see this one's definitely more yellowy. Put a bit more white in that. We really want to wash this color out quite a bit because it's getting kind of like highlighted on that section of the reference photo. Quite a bit of glare from the light. Let's see if that's a little bit closer. Still pretty yellow. I think I have to add a bit of blue into this, so I'm going to add a little bit of ultramarine blue. More on the bluish side rather than the yellow, because when you mix green it's blue and yellow to make green, so we want to tone down the yellow a bit, so we add a bit of blue. That is still not right. Add a bit more blue to it. And that should be closer to what we want. And this is a really good exercise if you're new to mixing colors, is just take a reference photo and play around with colors. You don't even have to paint with it if you don't want to in the end. You can just kind of like play around with mixing colors. That's actually a lot closer. I'm going to save some of this color. And I'm going to actually make a slightly darker version too. So we're going to add a bit more blue to it. And it might seem odd, like mixing some of these colors, because you're like, well, it's just green. But once you like really start taking apart and like focusing on like the very subtle colors in it, you'll start to notice that things aren't always as they seem. Yeah, that's definitely closer to the slightly darker green there. So we've got these two colors kind of for that one section, and then these colors on the main one with the cheese on it. That is a lot closer. The other tip, you can actually get like apps on your phone for like color picker, where you can like put kind of like, you know, like the little dropper tool on like paint. So you could like, I have paint open actually right now. So I could put the dropper tool on certain sections, or like you can like touch certain sections in your photo and it will show you where it is on the color wheel. And then it'll give you a better idea of like what types of colors are in that specific area. It's a good way to start if you're struggling with kind of like the basics of color theory. I definitely started that way when I first was like mixing colors, and it helped a lot. But now it's like a lot easier to do it now. I don't know how. I think it's just practice over time. You just kind of get used to it. You get the hang of it after a while. It's really, with anything, just more practice will help. So I'm gonna make the highlight colors, and I'm kind of just scraping up some of the green, and I'm putting it into the highlight because I want the highlight to be a little green on the edges. Right on the Babybel cheese, on the edges. Yeah, that's like kind of what we want there. Okay. I'm gonna pick that up and put it here because that's like the highlight color there. And now we are going to, so we didn't end up using this green here. I'm just gonna put that to the side because we might use it at some point. Could use it for another painting. That's what I always say. I'm like, maybe I'll use it for another painting. And normally when I have so many colors and I feel like I'm not going to use them, I grab like a wood panel or something and I make like some abstract art. I do that quite a bit actually. I just like take here, I have like, yeah, I have one over here. I'll just take a panel and I'll just make some like abstract art, and it's fun to just like smear it around with a palette knife and like make it look cool. Then at least your paint doesn't go to waste, and you can kind of say like that painting is made up of a bunch of different paintings that you've done, which I think is like a really neat way to like display your art. I like to kind of mess around with different art styles. Abstract is one of the ones that I really enjoy, just to kind of do expressive like mark making. I did a lot of that in like art therapy when I was a kid, so abstract art is still very close to me. Okay, and then we've got, well, at this point we've got the cheese, and I saved that for last because I know that the cheese might be a little bit difficult because some people would just be like, that's white, and that's like the end of it. But I will show you otherwise. So if you take your white, so titanium white, and you hold it up to the cheese, it is going to be absolutely way too bright, and it's not going to match. It's actually got, if you hold it up, you're going to see it has almost like yellow greenish undertones, which sounds weird, but it does. Has some, here, use your picker tool. Let me check my work. And I'm sure it does. Yeah, it's on the yellowish orangey green side. Exactly. That is exactly where the color is going. Like all of it's kind of like, this one's more orangey blue, and this one is more yellowy orangey green. So we are going to take a little bit of yellow to start out with. You said this part would be hard. Yeah, and I was just saying that using the color picker tool is really helpful for beginners because it's really hard to pick out those subtleties in the color. I'm adding yellow right now. So first, just add a little bit of yellow. And the best thing you can do is when you're mixing these white tones, just add one color at a time. So we're going to add the yellow, and then we're going to take the yellow and we're going to match it. We're going to be like, yeah, that's pretty close. It needs a bit of green though. It's still a little too dark. So we're just going to add a little bit of green. Just a little bit of the sap green to it. It's got a yellow green tone to it, which is going to feel really weird to do that, but trust me. Yeah, we definitely need a little bit more of that greenish tone. A little bit more of that greenish tone, a little bit more Oh, not that much yellow. That's a lot of yellow. Okay. And then we're gonna want to add a little bit, just a little bit of red. Don't want to go too red with this area. And adding the red will just add a little orange to it. And this is going to be pretty close to that cheese color. So we're going to match it up now. Sometimes squint a little bit. I think I made it, there's too much color in it now, so I need to add a little bit more titanium white. Okay, that is a lot closer. That is a lot closer to the color there. Just gotta mix it a little more to make sure. Okay, that's actually pretty good. We will use, so that's gonna be, oh, maybe put that there. So that's like the lightest part on the cheese. And now this part, we're gonna slowly add more blue to it. It's almost got kind of like purple undertones to it. So I'm gonna add a bit of blue in here. And we're gonna see where that takes us. A little bit of, I added ultramarine blue to it. That is not deep enough yet. So I'm gonna add a bit of this alizarin crimson to it. And by adding alizarin crimson and blue, it's gonna give us that purple that we're looking for. Add a little bit more blue there. This should be going in more of the direction that we want. And this is for the, I should use my mouse, but we're doing the color in the middle here, kind of. So we did this edge color here where it's brighter, and now we're going and working on this middle section here. And you're just gonna see like, kind of in between, if you hold them up together, you can see this one's more purple. And that one should be more of a like yellowy green. So this actually is getting dark enough in one of the areas. So I will grab a bit of this and we can make this like part of our transition color. And then we have to make a slightly darker version as well. So we're gonna add more of the blue, a little bit more of the red. That's gonna give us more of that purple color we were looking for. And I think at some point we're going to have to add a bit of the green back in it so it's not so saturated, because we don't want like purple cheese, you know. Not going for purple cheese here. So that's actually needs a bit more blue in it. And these colors, when you put them down on your white paper, it is gonna make it look so weird. You're gonna be like, this is not the right color. But once you add all the other colors around it, it will come together. And that's why I say this every time, a lot of artists like to tone their canvas or their pieces of paper with like an underpainting or like not an underpainting, but like a wash of a color. And you can achieve that either with using oil paints or like an acrylic paint if you're doing oils. That's like one rule in oil painting. You can put acrylics underneath oils, but you cannot put acrylics over top. You cannot put it over top. Okay, let's see. getting there. It's getting there. It needs to be a little bluer. This is like quite a bit bluer than I thought it was. And then, let's see, that's closer to what we want. And then I'm going to add a little bit of green. Green will help us desaturate those colors a little bit. Because purple and green are complementary colors. That'll desaturate the color. Yeah, that's a lot closer to what we want. It looks good. And you'll see that it looks very weird on our palette, but that is what the color of the cheese is. Took an eye painting class the other day too. And it's kind of like that with eyes as well. And she was saying the same thing in the class where, you know, the whites of the eyes are definitely not white. They have very subtle tones of other colors in them, like reds and blues and yellows. Okay, so that's our cheese palette. Now we need a slightly darker color. Yeah, I know, it's weird when you like think about it, right? So we need a slightly darker color for this like deep area, and we're gonna actually start out, I guess I should have saved some of this. Let me take a little bit of this color, this white we made. I'm going to keep this white kind of on the side a little bit, just in case we need it. And I'm gonna start in that area with blue. So we're gonna do ultramarine blue. We're gonna make that purple we like. Ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson, that'll make a nice purple. And then we're gonna add a little bit of yellow to that. Okay, that's a lot of yellow. Just a little bit of yellow. Let me see where that is. So that should be actually pretty close to the shadow area. We might need to desaturate it a little bit, yeah, because that's like pretty purple. I'm gonna add a little bit of green to it. I actually made a similar color last week for our shadow area when, or not last week, but the week before that when we were doing the tube of paint. We were painting a little tube of paint. We made a very similar purple in the shadow areas. I like using purple, specifically alizarin crimson and ultramarine blue. They're really, really versatile colors. A lot of artists use those two colors to make like those deeper tones in their paintings. And you'll see I don't have black on my palette because I really like using blue and alizarin crimson in my shadows. And you'll notice that with like a lot of my paintings. I'm gonna add a bit more green to this. You'll notice that in a lot of my paintings, like the shadow areas are like purpley. And I am gonna keep this more on the purple side than like continuing to desaturate this too much, because I do like to have those like subtle colors in other areas. I do like my paintings to look a little bit lifelike, so you can tell like what they are. But it's fun to push these colors a little bit. It's called pushing the local colors. So the local colors are what you see, like what it looks like in real life. And you can kind of push them a little bit when you understand color theory. Just makes paintings a bit more unique when you can push them in ways that you enjoy. A little bit more green, and then I think we're pretty good with that one. It's got like a nice kind of like purplish gray color. Yeah, that one's looking really good. Okay, so that's going to be the darkest area. in the painting. And then I'm trying to think, so the highlight on the cheese, so I will move my mouse this little area here. There's like a little white highlight. I actually see that there is a decent amount of like blue in that highlight, so I'm going to use some of the cerulean blue. So I have cerulean blue hue here, and we're just going to mix white and cerulean blue together. And this is like one of my favorite ways to make a nice bright highlight color, because there tends to be either kind of like a yellowish highlight, a pinkish highlight, or like a bluish highlight I find in a lot of my paintings that I do. Blue is like the most common highlight color for the types of paintings I do. Cerulean blue, you don't have to use a lot of it, like the very small, teeniest amount. It's actually like a little bit more blue. See, that looks so nice. Nice blue color. Yeah, that looks really good. That's what we're going for. So that's like our highlight color for the cheese. I'm actually going to put that highlight color around the top there because that's like our brightest highlight for the cheese. And we actually probably should be able to use, yeah, some of this like bluish highlight will be good around like the waxy sections, like the green wax. So that is kind of our highlight color. So that's kind of our highlight color for the painting. Got a bit of this highlight for the green too, but I think the bluish one is a bit closer. Now I'm gonna clean off this area. Oh, this was this color here. Clean off this color. I think we are pretty good here. Let me around and see if we're missing anything. And like I said, we could always mix like while we're going if we missed a color, but it's nice to kind of have everything done beforehand if we can. Flip that over. I'm going to put this here. I'm going to zoom into the palette so it's a little bit easier to see as we're going through everything. And let me see. Okay, stand back. Make sure you stand back from it and kind of that over there. Got a nice background color. I'm noticing that there's like a bit of like a bluish green kind of color we missed along the side. Like it's kind of similar to this one except lighter, so I think we could just lighten it with that. It's got that bluish color. I'm talking about, if I'm going to move my arrow along this edge here, there's kind of like a bluish, a light bluish color there. But we should be able to do that with some of the paints that we have. That's looking pretty good. Okay, I think we are good to start out here. I'm going to switch to the painting scene. I'm going to actually move my camera a little bit so then you'll be able to see me over here. And I will shift that over. I guess you guys can still hear me. And I've got my cameras set up there. You'll be able to see, oh, there's a cat in the top of the cat tree. That's the cat tree there. Okay. And come around here. And I should mention that I have a little bit of linseed oil here. So this is linseed oil in a container. I'm going to put it on my palette here. And I'm going to use that to clean my brushes off. And then the other thing I like to use is a little bit of Gamblin's solvent-free gel. So I like using their solvent-free gel sometimes. I do a little bit of solvent-free gel, or sometimes I put a little linseed oil. They both are quite nice. Just put a little bit on the corner of the palette there in case we want to thin any of the paint at all. So I did a little bit of a sketch here. Got a bit of a sketch going. Just trying to line this up so you guys can see my linseed oil, so you can see when I dip it in. And I just use these are just cut up towels, and I use that to clean off my brushes in the middle of painting. And we are going to, I was saying this last week, I like using a little bit of, these are like kneaded erasers or gummy erasers, and it's just pretty much an eraser, and it helps you to dab off the graphite on your sketch. And I don't want the sketch to mix in with my oil paint, so I am going to dab it off so we don't get a ton of the graphite in the oil paint, because it'll make it muddy if we don't dab it off, especially in that white area. All those white tones will maybe not go over so well if we have the graphite there. I dab that off. I was really excited to paint this one. Babybel, just like they made like a plant-based version, and I can't have dairy, so it's really nice that some of these companies are starting to make plant-based versions of things. So this one's actually like a non-dairy one. I think it says it's like fully vegan. So that's kind of nice. And that's why it's green, because I think normally the dairy ones are red. So it's nice because I like green. Green is one of my favorite colors. So it's kind of perfect that all of these plant-based things are green. Okay, there we go. And I'm recording a time lapse for this. I try to record time lapses, that's why I've got like 2 cameras stacked on top of each other. If you want to actually know my setup for everything that I do here, I did make a video recently on how I set up like my tripods and stuff for streaming. So if you're curious about this crazy tripod setup that I've got going on here, you can check out the long form video on my channel. I'm trying to make more like videos on my channels to show like behind the scenes stuff. I guess we've been sharing less time lapses. Yeah, I've been making kind of like other videos. I shared a time lapse last week, I think for my, was it my avocado painting that I did? But I have been sharing less time lapses. I have like a backlog of probably like 15 time lapses. So I gotta get those like edited, put up on the channel for you guys. Just like past paintings and stuff. Okay, just making sure that everything is good and that you can see everything okay. Looks good. So we're gonna be using, I like to start out with the Josol blender brushes by Princeton. They're the Velvet Touch series ones. Maybe I'll bring it into the bigger frame so you can see them. They're just like a flat brush pretty much. Nice blender brushes because they're like a little thicker than a flat brush, and you can like blend edges really nicely with it. I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna start out with the white cheese, just so we don't blend these other colors into the white. Normally I start out with like the darker colors. Maybe I should actually do the darker colors. I should be like legit since I'm like teaching right now and like show you how I should actually do it. So at school, they would teach you to start out with the darkest colors first and not use the lights. I don't always listen to that method, but I should here. Because it is sometimes harder to, well, it is harder to darken an area after you've added too much light colors to it. So you want to start out with your darkest values first, ideally. I find that I don't have too much of an issue if I don't do that, but for the purposes of the lesson, I should start out with the green, and then I will work on the cheese color afterwards. So let's start with the green. going to start out with the dark areas in the green. We will grab this darkest green color that we made, and we're just going to add it in all of the darkest areas. I'm also filming a short as well as my time lapse, so I'm going to do that. Okay, so the darkest areas would be, there's some darker areas here on the edge, and then we've also got some darker areas like within the inside of this one, so that's where we're going to add those colors first. So we're going to go along here. And we're not blending them out to begin with. You just want to kind of lay down the colors to start, and then we can go back in and we can blend things out as we feel we need to. And we'll get there. Some darker areas in this top section too. And then we're going to bring this dark color into this section on the side a little bit. And then looks like there's a bit of that darker color on the inside in here. It kind of goes up to like this midway section in the inside. Comes around here. And these colors are going to seem really dark to begin with, but just trust the process and the colors that we mixed and keep going with it. And we can kind of adjust colors at the end if we need to go over something, or we feel like something's not dark enough or not light enough. You can always go back in and kind of like adjust it a little bit. Now we also kind of have some like darker areas on this section over here, so we're going to add a little bit of that darker green over there as well. I just love painting so much. It's like so relaxing to do this. I mean, normally I'm like listening to music, but like, you know, YouTube will kind of like demonetize us if we have any music. So if you want, just like listen to the stream with some music on and like chillax and paint. I guess I could be having music in my ears. I could somehow make it so it's not on the stream, right? I'm going to select this second color down. Go with that next. And I'm going to start with it over here, the edge. And if you're struggling in the middle of the painting process and being like, I don't know if I'm laying the right color down where I'm supposed to be, just take it on your brush and hold it up to the reference image and be like, okay, so that's the color we mixed for that area. And that'll kind of help you remember like what colors were for which area. And I'm going to be making a replay of this, so if you're live right now, you can watch the replay, and if you're replaying it, make sure that you pause it as you need to kind of get things done. I'm trying to do these like decently slow, so then you guys can kind of catch up and do it with me as well. Or if I'm going too slow, you can play it on 2x speed. Oh man, I've been doing that lately with my classes. I'm taking a marketing and e-commerce course right now through like Google certificates with a college. And man, some of those videos are so slow. Like listening in 2 times speed because they're like just so boring and slow. Which is weird because normally like I have a hard time like listening to stuff super fast, but when it comes to like, I don't know, my screen reader is always on 2 times speed too, like on my phone, because I use a screen reader on my phone a lot of the time. I actually have dyslexia, so it's really hard for me to read, so I am very grateful for all these technologies that are coming out now, like screen readers and stuff. Audiobooks. Ugh, that's my favorite, is audiobooks. Our library has free audiobooks. You can borrow audiobooks at our library, which is like really great. So I definitely get use out of the audiobooks at the library. Look at this little Babybel. This is so cute. I just love playing with like the wax too. I always made like funny little characters with the wax pieces. It's like my favorite thing to do. Cute little characters with wax pieces. Okay, we're gonna start using this third color down as well, the green we made. And I like to kind of mix it in with this other color here. Realize I need to get like more memory on my camera too. I've been filming things in Ultra HD at 60 frames per second, so now like my memory card on my internal drive is filling up so quickly with all of the content that I've been making. Need to come up with a better solution because I keep buying more Google storage. Just keep buying more Google storage. Okay. Just getting that. That's looking pretty good so far. And then I'm gonna add some of this kind of lighter green in this area here too. And now we're gonna start using this kind of like greenish blue tones that we made as well. I use this darker color as well, kind of in this back area here. Those darker areas, and then there's also kind of some deeper areas down here as well. Grab this kind of lighter greenish blue, and this is going to be the main color on this area here. Might even lighten it a little bit with a bit of white. We made kind of like this greenish white color, so I'm using a bit of that as well. Just to lighten this area, go back in and blend it as well. we're going to go back in and make sure we define different areas in the waxy parts too. So don't worry if the areas aren't like super defined. It's just like the first pass of it. We're going to go back in and add a little bit of details, but getting this like base color on first is really important for establishing where the values are and where the colors are going to be kind of laid down. And so that's kind of what we're doing. So you're just wanting to add that base layer down. It's kind of like an underpainting in oil in a way. Just underpainting in a little bit of oil, and then we go over and add all those details that we want. Okay. Add a bit of this like lighter green color to this part here. Bit of a dark green here. Trying to kind of shape this area a bit more. We want this green bit that we made to kind of come over and out a little bit on the edge. Okay, that's like a pretty good first layer, and now we can start kind of going back in and like adding a little bit more details to it. I go back in and define all of these areas. Okay, I'm gonna grab like my really thin brush. So next I'm gonna use my 20/0 brush, and this is gonna be really helpful for adding in. I'm gonna add a little bit of linseed oil to make that like quite a bit thinner. Go in and grab some of that like whitish green that we made. We're going to start defining the edges because there's like a lot of kind of like shine on those edges there. So specifically along this line here. Take your time with it. Just really define those edges. I want to have all of those like little jagged edges. That we see. The more kind of like jagged we make it, the more like realistic it will be. Just keep dipping your brush in the white and adding a little bit more when you feel like you need a bit more. And you'll see that kind of starting to take shape as we define those edges now. Define this bottom edge. And the side there. And now we can actually start defining this one here. The this edge kind of like comes out a little bit, wraps around. I'm stalling on the coding. My husband's upstairs like coding my website. He's making a website specifically for the mini paint challenge that we're doing right now. And he's coding it from scratch, which I think is absolutely crazy, but amazing, the fact that I have someone to code my website from scratch. Because I do not have the time right now to learn how to code a website from scratch. My main website is hosted on Ghost. My husband's been managing that too. The Ghost platform is great. Very simple, easy to use platform that I've been using. But yeah, he just decided he wants to code this one from scratch, which is just absolutely crazy to me. I think it's crazy what you're doing, hun. All this like coding from scratch. Going to add in just like little highlights with the white right now, just kind of along the edge here. And it's really starting to take shape just with, you know, all of those like little highlights along the edges. And then even have highlights along the edge here on the bottom. A bit more blended in along the bottom here. So just blending it out. Make sure that while you're doing things, you just kind of like step back a little bit and you're like, I could use this here, I could use that there. Just kind of adjust as you need. Looks like there's quite a bit of like little reflections on the edges here, so I'm just adding some of those extra details along the edges. My husband's like trying not to make noise in the corner there. Silly. Just kind of lightening this area so it stands out a little bit more. Adding kind of like a greenish tone to this area. And that's looking pretty good. And we're gonna add a little bit more highlights along there. Honestly, like this part's like pretty close to being finished for now, and then we can always come back to it at the end. That's the nice thing about it, is we can always come back to it if we feel like we missed something, but it's good to like not go too crazy, like focusing on like too many small details, especially with like the mini paintings like this. Just get what you can on it and then kind of move on, and you can always come back. There we go. It's looking pretty good. Okay, Now I'm gonna grab a new brush. I have this other Josol blender brush. This is a number 4 one as well. I'm gonna start on the cheese portion now. And like I said, the cheese is gonna look real weird up against the white background to begin with. It's gonna look kind of like muddy and dark, but you gotta trust the process. So we're gonna start with, I think, this lighter color here. Start out with this lighter, like yellowish one that we put on first. It's the second one down. So that's like our highlight color. And we're going to start with the yellow first. And now this color is kind of on this top section here. Slowly put this color on here. Be careful when you're doing it beside the green, because the green color will kind of bleed into it a little bit if we're not careful with it. I mean, it's already kind of a yellowy green color anyway, but I'm trying to keep the colors a little separate for now. And we have a little bit of that color on the edges here, a little bit in here as well, kind of in this area. So I'm just gonna throw that down in there. Okay, I'm gonna wipe this off a bit. I'm gonna go with the next color, which is kind of the transition color between that yellow color and the purpley darker color. So we're gonna work on transition right here. This is going to a slightly darker section. It's going to feel really weird to turn your cheese this color, but we got this. And we're going to add it into some of this shadow area here. I am going to add it into the middle a little bit, because the darkest colors are kind of around this area. And now we're going to go with the darker color here. So I'm going to take that, I'm going to slowly kind of add that in there. We're going to blend it out into this transition color on both ends. And the cheese will slowly start coming together. Here now, you'll kind of see that this area specifically is a little bit darker. And this, it goes into that lighter color there. And we're actually going to bring some of this color into the edge here as well. I'm going to use that slightly darker color as we get closer to that edge. Okay, got some of these kind of like darker purple areas in this section as well. And now we are going to go with that darkest color. I'm going to clean off my brush a little bit so it's not too white. Slowly add in that really dark value there that we mixed up. There we go. And we're going to be very sparing with this. It's just on the edges here. And on this edge. And it's kind of on this little edge here, and this one, and then we've got a little bit down here where the bite mark was, and then on the inner edge of the cheese here. Now I'm going to take a smaller brush, because that brush is like way too big for blending it out. I have like these like super little brushes, and they're really great for blending these little dark areas out. Try not to blend them too much because we want to keep the values still pretty dark in these areas. You can always go back in and add a little bit more of that darker color if we need to, but and the little bite marks on the side will start to take shape now as we're kind of blending this out, and we can go back in and add a bit more details. But that's what the edges look like. We can add some like little highlights in there. Okay, and stand back, compare it. The cheese is coming along. It's looking pretty good. I'm going to start blending this a little bit more here. This lighter color. There we go. And the edge here. We're going to have to kind of touch that up when we add the green or the purple background as well. But for now, like, that looks pretty good. Gotta blend this edge color. There we go. There, that's more like it. And I'm just dabbing off this brush in between blends. I want kind of the brush to be pretty dry while you're blending, so you're kind of picking up some of the pigment. I've just got another kind of cloth beside my easel here. I'm dabbing it off on as well, just a little bit closer to work with. Okay, and now I'm going to clean this off a little bit, and I'm going to actually add in a little bit more of this lighter color, this kind of yellowy white that we made. And I'm slowly going to shape out this area where the cheese is. And then we're going to add a little bit more of that color down here as well, the little white color that we made. Now we're going to go in with like our highlight color and highlight those sections that are in the bright highlights, because it's kind of like a shiny cheese in those areas. think I'm gonna actually take more of that darker color, and in the really dark parts, add a bit more of this darker color, just to deepen the color a little bit. It could be blended it out too much. That's the thing, we'll kind of like push the values back and forth until it's like looking really nice. That's looking a bit more accurate. And a little bit more of this yellow into this section here. Okay, now we're going to take this color and we're going, or this liner brush, I should name the brush, it's the liner brush, the 20/01. I can actually go into this blue highlight color. I'm going to bring it down here so we can add a little bit of linseed oil into it, just to thin it out. It's just easier to work with the titanium white when you thin it out a little bit with oil. I find the color is very thick. And I'm going to take this I'm going to add kind of that highlight area here. A bit more pigment there. I'm going to add the first layer of the highlight there, just on the edge. Yeah. So that's kind of like the base layer of where the highlight's going to sit. Is that bluish tone. And then some of the highlights in here as well. I like to start out the highlights with the blue tone though, because I feel like it's matches really well to what the undertones of the highlight is. And then we'll also add a bit of that blue to this area here. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. And I'm gonna take a little bit of just pure titanium white as well. And we're gonna add that just a little bit to the top of each of those blue ones to make almost like a transition. Did you bite that, or is that our kiddo? I bit it, actually. I bit that one. He said he did want to bite it, though. He ended up just eating one of the whole things, so I didn't get to take a picture of the one he bit because he just ate the whole thing, like, very quickly. Kiddo was very excited for this painting, though, because he loves these little Babybel cheeses. think we've added some of those nice blue highlights. Now we're gonna start on the background color, so like this nice purpley color. And we can always go back in and add some more highlights to the green afterwards, but adding in the shadows and like the highlights is a really good place to start. So I'm going to clean off the number 4 brush because I think this will be a good size for, it's got green on it right now. I'm just trying to take as much pigment out as I can with the linseed oil. I find this works pretty good to clean off the brush. Oil on my finger. Try not to get any paint on myself if I can help it. No, it's not really good to get oil paint on your skin, so. Slowly cleaning it. Cleaning the brush. Now we get to play with the fun purple colors. So I realized I actually could use like a slightly darker purple in the highlights. So I'm going to mix just a little bit of ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson to make that like that really deep purple color we were talking about as like my darkest value. I realized I should have had some of that on the palette. Just like that. That one's just alizarin crimson and ultramarine blue mixed together. It'll give us a nice dark area over here. So I'm going to use some of this color right along the edges, just right along the edges, and then we're going to go to that purple color. But I think it'll be a little bit nicer to use this super deep color. I'm going to blend that out with the darker manganese violet color. So I'm going to grab the manganese violet now. We're just going to slowly blend out from this deeper color. And want the shadow to kind of come up here. And wrap around a little bit. I don't want the shadow too close to the edge there. I try to position the reference photos so they have like, they fit nicely on a square piece of paper, composition wise. I'm very particular like where the painting is on the paper. It's like over to the edge too much, it just like doesn't look as good. Okay, we've got shadow here. A little bit of purple on this edge for the shadow. We can come back in and like blend these afterwards too, these shadows. We'll work on it. Okay, we're gonna choose the color down from that. Kind of like add that on the edge. Okay. Now we will, so the reference photo, trying to decide, I definitely want kind of the, like I want it to kind of go darker in the background, I think, and then lighter near the front. I kind of like the glow around it though, like it's kind of nice. So we will, let's start out with this darker manganese violet around the edges, and then we'll work from there. Definitely this edge, I want it super dark on this edge. Kind of like what the shadow is. Actually might grab a bigger brush for this background area. I'm gonna grab my number 6 brush. I don't actually want to add too much color in the background. This color is very pretty. Slowly fade these out. I'm gonna make it a little lighter in the front here and a little bit darker back here. Feel like this manganese violet is pretty, like, it's a bit transparent. Not like super transparent, but you can kind of see through it a little bit. Maybe next time I'd add a more opaque color to it just to make it like look a little bit brighter in the background, but it looks pretty good. Not bad. Slowly adding this other color to it as well. Second color down. Go with third color down, which is this slightly lighter one. gonna slowly work to this lighter section now. Get careful right around where the cheese is there. This color will be really good along the shadow area as well. That'll define the shadow pretty nicely. And I think we'll blend it out with a proper blending brush after. I'll show you the little mop brush that I like to use. It's called. Okay, and now I'm gonna add the really light sections. Check out this really light purple here, right along the edges here. trying to really focus around these edges. Need this light a little brighter. Kind of dark outside. It's like bright enough for you guys there. I am really focusing on this section, so we will review after we're done focusing on this section. Okay. I'm gonna grab my little blender brush now. So I use, where is he? There he is. Okay, so I have this it's called a mini mop brush. And they're kind of yeah, they're kind of got this moppy texture to them. And this is what I use to blend out the backgrounds. So I like to start in the darker colors. I'm gonna slowly work our way around. Into these lighter colors. And you're kind of just dry brushing again, so you're gonna want to dab off your brush at certain sections. So I'm gonna grab this. So make sure you have a cloth in your hand and just dab it off as you go, as you're brushing that around. just taking off the excess paint and blending the colors together. At least if you want a smooth background, sometimes it's nice to leave the little painterly marks in the background as well. But I kind of want a smooth background for this time, so I will show you that as well. This is where everyone's style kind of can veer off, like you either really like blending things out or you don't. I tend to enjoy blending things out. Just love the smooth transitions between colors. Bit of a tedious process, but it looks nice and smooth at the end if you blend it out this way. We're kind of looking for that like circular motion around the cheese. So I'm kind of just blending in the direction that I want the background to be. Looks really white. Yeah, on screen it looks really white. I don't know why it's picking up it being so white on screen. It like definitely does not look white on like what I'm doing right now. I think it's just not picking up those subtle tones that I'm doing. It really isn't that white. I will post a photo afterwards of my painting as well. That's the hard thing with not doing painting classes in person, because you really can't see the exact colors that I'm doing on stream. I feel like the webcams aren't always that accurate, right? It does look really white on the screen, you're right. It is not that white. That is very strange. And I'm going to use this little blendy brush again. Use this for the edges right here near the shadow. I'm going to blend it a little bit more so it's not as harsh, the line. Wonder if I need to add maybe a bit more light to it. No, it's just very white looking. Oh, I'm adding the wrong color in there. I'm just blending out the closest parts to the cheese with this smaller brush. kind of alternating from the bigger brush to the smaller brush when I need to. Maybe I'll have to mess around with like the webcam settings next time, so then you guys can get like more accurate colors. Because it does bug me that the colors aren't like super accurate on the webcam. You'd assume that colors would be like a little bit closer, you know? Not a little too far in that area. Gotta add some of that darker shadow back again. Go. Is cat hair. Oops, I definitely put some dark color on there when I shouldn't have. Let me fix that. I'll use this brush to fix it. Okay, I'm gonna add a bit more highlights into that. I kind of like the background now. I think it's exactly where we want it. The color looks off on screen. Like, my husband's gonna have to come down and actually see the finished painting here. I'm gonna have to for sure take a picture of this one because it's looking so different. I'm going to use some of this white, add a bit more highlights to this cheese area. And then these highlights are just going to define the last of these little areas here. Add a few more highlights in that area along the side here. My belly's gurgling now. I'm hungry. It's almost lunchtime. I feel like painting food will do that to you though. Really just trying to add those subtle highlights in there. Which is looking pretty good, honestly. There we go. I think those little highlights really added to the overall look there. Just gonna add some little imperfections in the cheese a bit. By adding a little bit of the white highlights in here. Which are not going to really show up on camera, but we're trying our best over here. There we go. Really wish some of these subtle highlights showed up on camera because they're really fun to play with. Okay, step back. That looks like a bite out of it now, right? Looks pretty good. There, I was trying to create like a bit of a fold. And the cheese there on the side. That looks pretty good. There we go. I think we're going to leave that for now. I will post a photo, like I said, on my Instagram and my Facebook, so you guys can see the finished piece too. I'll post on my stories as well after the stream, but I will have one up so then you guys can go look back if you're watching a replay of this and then come and see it. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. It's very accurate to the photo. It does not look that way on the stream. I'm gonna play with the colors for next stream for you guys, and we'll see. But that's looking pretty good today. I'm quite happy with how that turned out today. Okay, I'm gonna move to the thank you screen because thank you for hanging out. If you have made it this far and you are doing this painting, make sure you tag me on social media at Josol Art and use the hashtag mini paint challenge, and you can see some of the other paintings and stuff that other people have done for the challenge too. So there's been a few people that have participated so far, which is just so cool. I love seeing all of the like different creations, and there's a bunch of different mediums people are using, which is super cool to see. So yeah, I'm really, really glad that you guys are enjoying this challenge. I'm gonna keep at this and keep producing these because it seems that the community is really excited about the live stream. So I'm glad I can put these on for you guys. But yeah, make sure you follow me on like Instagram, Facebook. I have a lot of updates there. I do post shorts every day on my YouTube channel as well, and I post a few things in the community tab, so if you want to stay updated. Oh, and if you really want to stay updated, you can join my email list on my website. So just click on the mini paint challenge link and then join the email list on my website, and you'll get like blog updates and mini paint challenge updates and little shop updates and stuff for my website. But I'm glad that you guys hung out with me today, and I will see you in the next live stream. So I hope you guys have a good day, night, evening, wherever you are, and I will see you in the next one. Bye everyone.